They gave you a desk. They gave you a grade. They told you it was education. But what if I told you it was training? You sat in rows, you raised your hand, you waited for permission to speak, and you thought that was normal. It wasn't. It was deliberate. Every rule, every test, every gold star was designed to condition one thing: obedience. They didn't teach you how to think, they taught you how to comply. And most people never realize it. They graduate, they enter the workforce. They follow orders, they chase approval, and they call it success. But it's not success. It's survival within a system that was never built for your power. It was built for your submission. Education wasn't designed to free your mind. It was designed to contain it, to make you predictable, manageable, useful. You were taught that authority knows best, that questioning is disrespect, that your value is determined by how well you perform tasks someone else assigned. And now, even when no one's watching, you still perform. You still seek validation. You still wait for someone to tell you you're doing it right. That reflex didn't come from nowhere. It was installed, methodically, repeatedly, until it became who you are. But here's the truth they never told you. The system doesn't need swords to maintain control. It doesn't need chains. It just needs your compliance. And compliance is easy to engineer when you condition people young enough. When you teach them that independence is arrogance, that curiosity is disruption, that silence is respect. Most people spend their entire lives defending the very system that domesticated them, because it gave them identity, it gave them structure, it gave them a cage they mistake for a home. This isn't theory, this is strategy. And if you understand it, you understand how power actually moves. Not through force, through perception, through fear, through reward, through the silent agreement that someone else gets to decide what your mind is allowed to explore. That agreement is breaking now. And what comes next isn't rebellion, it's reclamation. You're about to see how the entire structure was designed. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So pay attention. Because this is how you maintain power without swords. You were never meant to think for yourself. That's the truth they won't say in classrooms. Education was designed to produce workers, not warriors. People who follow instructions, not people who question them. The system feeds you information in controlled doses, just enough to function, never enough to dominate. You memorize dates, formulas, names, but you never learn how power actually moves through the world. That's intentional. Knowledge without application is just decoration, and decoration doesn't threaten control. They taught you to raise your hand before you speak, to sit in rows, to wait for permission. Every rule was a rehearsal for obedience. You learned that authority decides what's true, and your job is to repeat it back. Right answers get rewards. Wrong answers get punishment. You didn't notice it then, but you were being trained. Trained to seek approval. Trained to fear rejection. Trained to believe that someone else holds the key to your worth. That's not education. That's domestication. The curriculum was never about your curiosity. It was about making you predictable. Predictable people don't disrupt systems, they sustain them. You were taught what to think, not how to think. Critical thought is dangerous to those who need your compliance. So they replaced it with compliance disguised as discipline. They told you this was preparation for life. But life doesn't reward obedience. It rewards dominance. And dominance requires something they never gave you, the ability to question everything, including them. I've seen brilliant minds reduced to performers, people who could have ruled their own reality, stuck waiting for validation from mediocre gatekeepers. They don't lack intelligence. They lack permission to use it. That's the brilliance of the system. It convinces you that your mind isn't yours until someone else certifies it. You graduate, you get a degree, you feel accomplished. But you never learned the most important lesson, that the entire structure was built to keep you contained. Contained minds don't challenge boundaries. They respect them. Power doesn't need swords when it has syllabi. It doesn't need chains when it has grades. The leash is invisible, but it's there. Every time you waited for the teacher to call on you, you practiced submission. Every time you studied for a test instead of studying for mastery, you reinforced dependence. The system didn't fail you. It succeeded. It turned critical thinkers into compliant citizens. And now, even outside the classroom, you still ask for permission. You still wait to be chosen. You still need someone to tell you that you're good enough. That reflex didn't come from nowhere. But here's what they didn't count on. Some people wake up. Some people see the pattern. Some people realize that the game was rigged from the beginning, and they stop playing by the rules. Education gave you a foundation, but it also gave you chains. The question is whether you'll mistake those chains for structure, whether you'll defend the very system that limited you simply because it gave you an identity. Most people do. They call it loyalty. They call it respect. But it's just fear wearing a diploma. You were taught to follow. You were never taught to lead. And leadership, real leadership, doesn't come from credentials. It comes from the willingness to reject what everyone else accepts. The moment you stop waiting for approval is the moment you reclaim your mind. And your mind unchained is the most dangerous weapon you'll ever own. That's the education they should have given you. But they couldn't, because if they had, you wouldn't need them anymore. And their power depends on your dependence. Obedience is not a virtue. It's a survival mechanism that outlived its usefulness. You obeyed your parents because you were small and dependent. You obeyed your teachers because you were told that's what good students do. You obeyed the rules because breaking them meant consequence. But somewhere along the way, obedience stopped being a strategy and became your identity. You started to believe that compliance equals correctness, that following orders means you're intelligent. That's the trap. Intelligence without autonomy is just a well-trained reflex. And reflexes don't build empires. The psychology behind obedience is simple. Fear of exile. Humans are wired to seek belonging. We evolved in tribes where rejection meant death. So we learned to conform. We learned to suppress disagreement. We learned to mirror the behavior of those in power. That instinct served us when survival depended on the group. But now, it's a leash. You don't need the tribe to survive anymore. You need yourself, yet you still act like approval from others is oxygen. You still modify your opinions to fit the room. You still silence your truth to avoid conflict. That's not social intelligence. That's self-abandonment. They tested this in the lab. Milgram's experiments proved that ordinary people will inflict pain on strangers if an authority figure tells them to. Not because they're cruel, because they're obedient. They defer responsibility. They assume someone else knows better. They trust the system more than they trust their own moral compass. That's how atrocities happen. Not through evil masterminds, but through compliant participants who never question the order. You think you're different. You think you'd resist. But statistics say otherwise. Most people fold under pressure. Most people choose comfort over conscience. Obedience feels safe because it removes the burden of choice. When you follow, you don't have to think. You don't have to risk being wrong. You don't have to carry the weight of your own decisions. Someone else decides, and you just execute. That's why hierarchies thrive. Not because they're efficient, but because they relieve people of responsibility. You trade autonomy for certainty. You trade power for permission. And over time, you forget you ever had a choice. You start to believe that your role is to comply, not to command. That belief is the invisible prison most people spend their entire lives in. I've watched people defend their obedience like it's a badge of honor. They call it professionalism, they call it respect, they call it maturity. But strip away the language and it's just fear. Fear of standing out, fear of being wrong, fear of losing the approval they've built their identity around. These people don't lack intelligence. They lack the stomach to weaponize it. They know the truth, but they won't speak it. They see the manipulation, but they won't name it, because naming it would require them to act. And action requires courage they've never been taught to cultivate. Compliance is a slow death. It doesn't kill you all at once. It erodes you. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you lose a piece of yourself. Every time you nod along to something you disagree with, you reinforce your own irrelevance. People sense this. They can smell submission. And once they know you're willing to bend, they'll keep pushing until you break. That's not cruelty. That's dominance. The world rewards those who hold boundaries, not those who dissolve them for the sake of peace. Respect is not earned by being agreeable. It's earned by being unmovable. But here's the part they don't tell you. The cage was never locked. You can walk out anytime. The only thing stopping you is the belief that obedience equals safety. It doesn't. It equals invisibility. And invisibility is the opposite of power. You were conditioned to think that saying no is disrespectful. That questioning authority is arrogance. That independence is selfishness. Those are lies designed to keep you small. The moment you realize that your disobedience is not rebellion, it's reclamation, everything changes. You stop waiting for permission. You stop seeking validation. You start commanding respect by refusing to negotiate your worth. Fear is the most efficient weapon ever designed. It doesn't need to be visible. It doesn't need to be spoken. It just needs to be felt. And once it's felt, it rewires everything. Logic becomes secondary. Survival becomes primary. You stop thinking clearly because clarity requires calm, and fear destroys calm. This is not an accident. Every system that wants control understands this principle. A fearful mind is a manageable mind. You don't need swords when you have uncertainty. You don't need chains when you have consequences. Fear does the work for you. Schools didn't teach you to think. They taught you to fear failure. Every test was a threat. Every grade was a judgment. You learned that mistakes weren't opportunities. They were punishments. So you stopped experimenting. You stopped taking risks. You started playing it safe. That's how fear replaces logic. Logic says, try, fail, learn, adapt. Fear says, don't try at all. And fear is louder. It's faster. It hijacks your nervous system before your brain can even process the situation. You don't decide to be afraid. You just are. And in that state, you're easy to control. Fear of judgment is the invisible cage most people never escape. You censor yourself before anyone else can. You edit your words. You soften your opinions. You avoid saying what you really think because you're terrified of the consequence. Not physical consequence, social consequence. Rejection, ridicule, isolation. These aren't real threats to your survival, but your brain doesn't know that. It treats social exile like a death sentence. So you comply, you conform, you become what's expected, not what's authentic. And every time you do this, you reinforce the pattern. You teach yourself that your truth is dangerous. I've seen intelligent people sabotage themselves because they were more afraid of being wrong than they were committed to being right. They had the answer. They saw the flaw in the logic, but they stayed silent. Why? Because speaking up meant risk. It meant standing alone. It meant the possibility of embarrassment. So they chose safety over accuracy. That's not humility. That's cowardice dressed as respect. And cowardice doesn't earn you anything except invisibility. The people who dominate conversations aren't always the smartest. They're the ones who aren't paralyzed by the fear of being challenged. Fear doesn't just silence you, it makes you complicit. When you see something wrong and say nothing, you're not staying neutral. You're choosing a side. You're endorsing the lie through your silence. But you tell yourself it's not your problem. You tell yourself it's not worth the conflict. You tell yourself that speaking up won't change anything. Those are rationalizations, excuses your fear generates to justify inaction. The truth is simpler. You're afraid. Afraid of confrontation, afraid of consequence, afraid of standing out. And that fear keeps you small. It keeps you controlled. It keeps you exactly where the system wants you. People mistake caution for wisdom. They think that avoiding mistakes makes them intelligent. But caution without action is just stagnation. Wisdom comes from testing boundaries, not respecting them. You learn more from one failed attempt than from 1,000 perfect simulations in your head. But fear convinces you otherwise. It tells you to wait, to prepare more, to gather more information, to get one more opinion. And while you're waiting, someone else is moving, someone else is failing, someone else is learning. And eventually, someone else is winning. Not because they were smarter, because they weren't paralyzed by the need to be perfect. The moment you realize that fear is a tool being used against you, everything shifts. You stop treating it like truth. You stop letting it dictate your decisions. You recognize it for what it is, a biological response designed for a world that no longer exists. You don't eliminate fear. You override it. You act despite it. That's not recklessness, that's power. Power is moving forward when every instinct tells you to retreat. Power is speaking when silence feels safer. Power is refusing to let fear have the final word. And once you understand that, you stop being a reactor. You become a commander, not of others, of yourself. Every reward you ever received was a transaction. You did what they wanted, and they gave you validation. A gold star, a grade, a compliment, a promotion. It felt good. It felt like progress. But it wasn't progress. It was conditioning. You were being trained to associate obedience with pleasure, to link compliance with worth. Over time, you didn't need the external reward anymore. You internalized it. You became your own trainer. You started chasing approval automatically without even realizing you were doing it. That's the genius of the reward system. It doesn't need to be enforced forever. It just needs to be repeated until it becomes reflex. Pavlov's dog salivated at the sound of a bell. You react to praise the same way. It triggers something deep, a dopamine hit. A sense of safety, a confirmation that you're doing it right. But who decided what right means? Not you. Someone else set the standard, and you've been chasing it ever since. Every time you modify your behavior to earn someone's approval, you're surrendering a piece of your autonomy. You're saying, your opinion of me matters more than my opinion of myself. That's not humility, that's dependency. And dependency is the opposite of dominance. The reward system works because it's invisible. You don't see the leash, You just feel the pull. You adjust your behavior without questioning why. You speak differently around certain people. You dress a certain way to fit in. You suppress your real thoughts to avoid conflict. And every time you do this, you're rewarded, not with money or prizes, with acceptance, with belonging, with the quiet comfort of knowing you didn't rock the boat. But comfort is a cage, and the more you prioritize it, the smaller your world becomes. You start to mistake safety for strength, approval for respect, permission for power. I've seen people destroy themselves chasing validation from people they don't even respect. They work jobs they hate for bosses they despise, just to hear "good job" once a month. They stay in relationships that drain them because leaving would mean disappointing someone. They sacrifice their truth for the illusion of harmony, and they call this maturity. They call this responsibility. But it's not. It's self-abandonment wrapped in obligation. The reward system taught them that their value is external, that their worth is measured by how useful they are to others. And now, even when no one's watching, they still perform, still seek, still beg for scraps of recognition from a world that will never give them enough. Approval is addictive because it's unpredictable. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. That inconsistency keeps you hooked. You keep trying, keep adjusting, keep hoping that this time, if you just do a little more, you'll finally earn the validation you crave. But you won't, because the system isn't designed to satisfy you. It's designed to keep you reaching, to keep you dependent, to keep you controllable. The moment you stop needing approval is the moment you become dangerous. Dangerous to anyone who relied on your compliance, dangerous to any system that required your obedience, dangerous to yourself, because now you have to decide what you actually want, not what you were told to want. Most people never break free. They defend the reward system like it's sacred. They say things like, "Everyone needs feedback," or "Teamwork requires cooperation." And they're not wrong. But they're confusing feedback with dependency, cooperation with submission. There's a difference between listening to input and needing permission, between collaboration and self-erasure. The people who command respect don't ignore feedback. They filter it. They decide what's useful and discard the rest. They don't adjust their behavior to earn validation. They adjust it to achieve outcomes. That's the difference between a follower and a leader. Followers need praise. Leaders need results. You don't need rebellion. You need recalibration. Stop asking, "Will they approve?" Start asking, "Does this serve me?" Stop seeking permission. Start making decisions. Stop waiting for someone to tell you you're good enough. Decide you are, and act accordingly. The reward system only controls you if you let it. If you keep playing the game, you'll keep losing. Because the game was never designed for you to win. It was designed to keep you playing. And the only way to win is to stop. Stop chasing, stop performing, stop measuring your worth by how much applause you receive. Respect isn't given to those who beg for it. It's commanded by those who no longer need it. Most adults never graduate from mental childhood. They age. They accumulate responsibilities. They build careers and families. But inside they're still waiting for someone to tell them what to think. They outsource their opinions to experts, to influencers, to whoever speaks with enough confidence to sound authoritative. They don't form beliefs, they adopt them. And once adopted, they defend those beliefs like they're original, like they came from deep reflection instead of passive absorption. That's the collapse. Not a sudden event, a slow erosion. Independent thought doesn't die in one moment. It dies in 1,000 small surrenders. The system didn't just teach you what to think. It taught you to distrust your own judgment. Every time a teacher corrected you, You learned that your instincts were wrong. Every time you were graded, you learned that someone else decides what's valuable. Every time you were told to follow the curriculum, you learned that curiosity outside the approved path is irrelevant. Over time, you stopped questioning, you stopped exploring, you stopped trusting yourself. And now, even when no authority is present, you still seek one. You still look for validation. You still need someone to confirm that your thoughts are acceptable before you speak them. That's not education, that's domestication. People defend the very systems that enslaved them because those systems gave them identity. They say, "School taught me discipline," or "My degree opened doors." And maybe that's true, but it also closed others. It taught you to measure success by external markers, to equate credentials with competence, to believe that learning only counts if it's certified. You were conditioned to think that knowledge without a diploma is worthless, that experience without a title is irrelevant. So you stopped learning for yourself. You started learning for approval, for recognition, for the stamp of legitimacy that makes you feel safe in a world that punishes outliers. I've watched intelligent people repeat talking points they don't understand, simply because those talking points came from someone with authority. They don't analyze the logic. They don't question the premise. They just accept it. Why? Because independent thought is uncomfortable. It's lonely. It requires you to stand apart from the herd and risk being wrong without anyone to blame but yourself. Most people can't handle that, so they choose consensus over clarity. They choose safety over truth. They'd rather be wrong with the crowd than right by themselves. That's not stupidity. That's survival instinct applied to a world that no longer requires it. The collapse of independent thought doesn't happen because people are lazy. It happens because they're rewarded for conformity and punished for deviation. You get promoted for following protocol, not for challenging it. You get praised for agreeing, not for dissecting. You get included for fitting in, not for standing out. Over time, this creates a society of mimics. People who can recite information but can't generate insight, who can follow instructions but can't create strategy, who can perform tasks but can't question purpose. They're functional, they're productive, but they're not free, and they don't even realize it, because freedom requires a frame of reference they were never given. True education begins when you start questioning your teachers, not out of disrespect, out of necessity, because the moment you accept something without scrutiny, you stop thinking and start believing. And belief without examination is just programming. You need to dismantle what you were taught. Not all of it, but enough to see the structure. Enough to understand that most of what you call knowledge is just inherited opinion. Once you see that, you can rebuild. You can decide what's useful and what's conditioning. You can separate truth from tradition, wisdom from obedience, power from permission. Most people will never do this. They'll spend their entire lives defending ideas they never chose, fighting battles they don't care about, pursuing goals they were told to want. And they'll call it purpose. They'll call it success. They'll call it maturity. But it's just the final stage of the collapse. The moment when you stop resisting and start identifying with your chains. When you mistake your cage for your identity. When you become so invested in the system that questioning it feels like questioning yourself. That's the end game. Not rebellion, not resistance, just silent, voluntary compliance. And the tragedy is, most people think that's what wisdom looks like. Power doesn't come from force anymore. It comes from perception. The people who control narratives control reality. They don't need armies. They need influence. They need the ability to shape what others believe is true. This is modern warfare, psychological, invisible, relentless. You don't conquer land, you conquer minds. And the battlefield is everywhere, every conversation, every interaction. Every moment someone decides whether to respect you or dismiss you. That decision is based on one thing: how you present yourself. Not who you are, how you're perceived. And perception is the only currency that matters now. You don't need rebellion. You need control. Control of your image. Control of your reactions. Control of the information you allow others to access. Most people leak their weaknesses without realizing it. They over-explain. They apologize unnecessarily. They seek validation in real time. Every time you do this, you're broadcasting vulnerability. You're telling the world, I'm uncertain, I'm insecure, I need your approval. And the world responds accordingly. It tests you. It pushes boundaries. It takes advantage. Not because people are evil, because weakness invites dominance. That's survival. That's biology. The moment you stop projecting uncertainty is the moment you start commanding respect. Respect isn't earned through kindness. It's enforced through boundaries. You don't ask for respect. You require it. And you require it by refusing to tolerate anything less. This doesn't mean aggression. It means clarity. When someone crosses a line, you don't explain why it's wrong. You just remove access. No argument, no negotiation, no second chances for behavior that already revealed their intention. Most people are terrified of this. They think enforcing boundaries makes them cruel. But boundaries aren't cruelty. They're self-preservation. And self-preservation is the foundation of all power. You can't lead if you can't protect yourself. You can't command if you can't say no. I've seen people try to gain respect by being useful, by doing favors, by making themselves indispensable. And it never works. Because usefulness doesn't create respect. It creates dependency. And dependency breeds resentment. The more you give without requiring reciprocity, the less people value you. They start to see you as a resource, not a person. They take what you offer and give nothing back. And when you finally stop giving, they don't appreciate what you did. They resent you for stopping. That's the price of trading value for validation. You become disposable the moment you're no longer convenient. Knowledge becomes a weapon only when it's free from approval. Most people know the truth. They see the manipulation, they recognize the patterns, but they don't act on it. Why? Because acting on it would isolate them. It would put them at odds with the group. It would require them to stand alone. So they stay silent. They nod along. They participate in systems they don't believe in, because participation feels safer than exile. But safety is an illusion. You're not safe when you're complicit. You're just comfortable. And comfort is the slow death of every ambition you ever had. The one who defines truth commands reality. This is not philosophy. This is strategy. If you control the frame, you control the outcome. If you set the terms, others operate within them. Most people react. They let someone else define the situation, and then they respond. That's weakness. Power is proactive. It dictates. It doesn't explain. It doesn't justify. It simply states what is, and others adjust accordingly. You don't argue your position. You embody it. You move with such certainty that questioning you feels pointless. That's not arrogance. That's conviction. And conviction is magnetic. It pulls people in. It makes them want to follow. Not because you forced them, because you didn't need them to. You reclaim power the moment you stop negotiating it, stop asking, stop explaining, stop waiting for permission. Decide what you want. Decide what you're worth. Decide what you'll tolerate. And then enforce it without apology. The world doesn't reward fairness. It rewards strength. Not physical strength, mental strength, emotional strength. The strength to stand alone when everyone else folds. The strength to walk away when staying would compromise you. The strength to say no when yes would be easier. That's the weapon. That's the sword you don't need to draw, because people sense it. They know you're not bluffing. And once they know that, they stop testing you. They stop pushing. They start respecting. Not because they like you, because they recognize you're not controllable. And what's not controllable is either avoided or revered, never ignored. You weren't born obedient. You were made that way. Every system that profits from your compliance taught you to seek permission, chase approval, and fear consequence. But now you know. And knowledge without action is just decoration. You don't need rebellion. You need recalibration. You don't need to destroy the system. You need to stop letting it control you. Power isn't given. It's taken back, one decision at a time. One boundary at a time. One refusal at a time. Most people will ignore this. They'll nod along and return to their routines. They'll keep waiting for someone to choose them, to validate them, to tell them they're ready. But you're not most people. If you've watched this far, you already know something's wrong. You've felt the leash, you've seen the cage, and now you're deciding whether to stay comfortable or become dangerous. Dangerous to anyone who assumed you'd comply forever. Dangerous to any system that required your silence. Dangerous to the version of yourself that thought permission was necessary. Before you close this, there's something else you need to see. Go back and watch the ruthless law Machiavelli never said out loud. That video shows you what happens when you stop playing by their rules and start enforcing your own. You think you understand power. You don't. Not yet. That video will show you the one principle that separates those who lead from those who follow. The principle they don't teach. The principle they hope you never discover. If you want to understand how dominance actually works, you don't have a choice. Watch it now. Write this in the comments. I think, therefore I disobey. Not as inspiration, as a declaration. Let it be proof that you're not here for comfort. You're here for control. Write it now. You were never meant to be free, but you will be.